Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Habib Benzian. I'm a public health practitioner, health policy analyst. I talk here on behalf of Fit for School as an NGO in the Philippines that is implementing and supporting school health, a national school health program in the Philippines. This program is also financed, co-financed and supported by GIZ, Sector Initiative Global Health Systems. I'm at the same time CEO of another NGO called Fit for School International, promoting school health worldwide and building on evidence for school health. I'm going to talk to you today from a very, very different angle, and you will hear probably different things than you have heard in the brainy and sometimes probably very abstract discussions over the last 3 days. I will bring you a little bit down to earth again, to the realities in low and middle income countries. Let me first of all start with a reality check. Allow me to ask you a question. Who of you here in the audience has had toothache in the last year? Just raise your hands. Okay, that's a pretty accurate statistic picture. And I assume that when you had toothache, you went to the dentist to get some help. In fact, toothache is the most common chronic problem worldwide. Dental decay, caries, is the most common chronic disease of human mankind. In the Philippines is no exception. 97% of the 6-year-old children have cavities, have caries, but there is no dentist, and they have no access to any care. You can imagine that a child with teeth like this is suffering, has pain, cannot sleep, cannot concentrate at school. So the entire health and immune system of that child is suffering, and its education performance. Another example, the Philippines are now classified as a low-middle income country. But still, diarrhea and respiratory tract infections are the top killer diseases of children in the Philippines. Those diseases are completely preventable by very simple, cost-effective measures. Every 5 minutes, a child dies in the Philippines of these diseases. Every 5 minutes, 2 cars are sold in the Philippines. This shows you the proportions of this new problem that poverty is not only in low-income countries. Poverty is now focusing on the low, middle income and the middle-income countries, which requires a different set of solutions. And the last rather gruesome example, more than almost 2/3 of the children in the Philippines have worm infections. Worm infections affect about 1 billion people in the world, mainly children, but also adults. The economic impact of worm infections, intestinal worms, different types of worms, is huge. At the same time, extremely cost-effective medication exists. You take 1 or 2 tablets a year and you get rid of the worms. The problem is how to implement a program that can address this problem, how to get the medication to the people that need them. And I'm sure I don't need to remind you of the close link between poverty and health. Poverty, low education, unemployment leads to disease. People who are poor have higher risks to health. They are exposed to more risks, and they usually have a much higher disease burden, which is evidenced in their life expectancy. It's extremely lower than those of high-income population groups. Of course, disease has a huge economic impact. All of this has been highlighted again in 2004 by the WHO Commission on Macroeconomics and Health, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, highlighting again that investments in health are in fact investments in development of every nation. But of course the question here is how does research link to development practice and to poverty reduction. Public health has several approaches to break this cycle of poverty and disease that I showed you before. Some of those principles are the focus on prevention. Many diseases can be prevented before they actually appear, thus costs can be averted. There are very cost-effective and cheap interventions. Health is not only determined by the health problems, but there are other determinants that have a huge impact on health. And I'm pleased to see outside one of the posters that investigates the link between water and sanitation and development, confirming again this strong link. Let me introduce you to Fit for School. Fit for School is an award-winning school health concept developed in the Philippines, supported by German development agencies. The program was awarded in 2009 for innovation by the World Bank, United Nations Development Program, and the WHO during the Global South Development Expo in Washington, D.C. Fit for School is very simple, is a modular concept of simple evidence-based interventions that can be easily integrated into the school daily routine. Usually school health, or traditionally school health programs have been focusing on information transfer, telling the children what is good and what is bad, telling them how to behave, telling them what they should eat or not eat, telling them why they should wash their hands. This program focuses actually not so much on the knowledge element, but on the skills element. Children do things every day in school. They wash their hands every day at school. They brush their teeth every day at school. We'll see that later. The program also bridges sectors. The problem with school health in most countries is that health and education ministries don't talk to each other. School health is an area where health personnel usually is involved, but also education personnel. And these two sectors have difficulties coordinating, harmonizing their activities. So this program has several mechanisms to bring evidence into the intersectoral collaboration. And last but not least, this program is very closely linked to science, to research, and involves at different levels and different aspects of the program, the best possible evidence derived from research. At the very beginning of the program was a very rational look at what are the real public health challenges in the Philippines. The existing programs were about 25 by the ministry, programs that were run by the Ministry of Education were like a little shop of everything, ranging from sexual health to toothache, from reproductive health to you name it. There were many programs. All of those had very little reach, covering only a pilot area. Some of them had been stopped because donor funding had dried out. So at the beginning of this program, the idea was to focus on those diseases that have the highest impact and just do this right and not do everything, try to cover everything. Of course, as I showed you before in the examples, the most important diseases for children in school age in the Philippines are diarrhea, lung infections, intestinal worms, and toothache, leading to children who are underweight, leading to children who cannot go to school. The toothache, for example, is the most common reason not to go to school, because children lie sick at home. So for these three problems, worms, infections, and tooth problems, there are three evidence-based interventions based on best possible evidence from public health science. Hand washing is one of the most effective public health measures for any population. It can prevent infection, intestinal infection, it can prevent diarrhea, it can prevent lung infections. Hand washing with soap. Toothbrushing with the fluoride toothpaste is the most efficient way to prevent tooth decay, caries. Has been recognized for more than 100 years that fluoride toothpaste is a very effective way to prevent dental caries. And as I mentioned before, deworming is very effective, very cost-effective. The deworming drugs cost about 5 US cents per year per child. So very, very cost-effective with high benefits for the child and for society at large. Together with those health interventions, schools that participate in the program get improvements in their water and sanitation. Worldwide, about 2/3 of schools in developing countries don't have access to water or don't have access to appropriate sanitation. What is appropriate sanitation in this case? Imagine a school of 1,000 children, just 2 toilets. One of them is locked because it is reserved for the teachers. The other one is very quickly dysfunctional. So this is a main problem for many schools. And again, the paper that is the poster of the paper outside, I really recommend to read it. It shows the huge economic benefit of investing in water and sanitation. The program itself is very cheap. It costs 50 US cents per year per child. It is very simple and very affordable. The local government units in the Philippines, those who are participating in the program, have integrated these costs into their annual operational budgets. So the element of sustainability is completely covered here. Part of the program has been from the beginning a very strong element for monitoring and evaluation. Again, an area where science and research comes in. There's a longitudinal health outcome study that measures the health impacts of the program. There's a strong element of process monitoring, looking at implementation quality, looking at motivating people to implement the program better. And all those results and those details of the accompanying research for the program inform the program management, but also inform the policymakers and create good arguments for further advocacy to expand and improve the program. On a more abstract level, we believe that the program is bridging gaps, several gaps. Usually, or very often, there is a gap between policy and implementation. In many countries, for many issues in health, you have a huge bulk of policies, but they are drawn up in workshops or they follow international guidelines. They usually or very often end up in a drawer of a government administrator, a government official. The problem is that those policymakers often have very little connection to the implementation side. So this program tries to actually bridge that gap by making the implementation as simple as possible, as streamlined and as standardized as possible.